on Senator Mary Siri Carney. Senator, you have 4 minutes. Welcome, Minister O'Donnell.
Minister, thank you very much. I appreciate that this is not your department, but my experience of you is that you always go back and advocate on my behalf very strongly and fulfil your word and commitment to us. So I really appreciate it, and I'm delighted to see you here this morning. In the aftermath of COVID, we had Minister Foley and the Department of Education identified correctly that the mental health and well-being of children had deteriorated across the state. And in actual fact, the best way forward was to put in place well-being and mental health supports in schools throughout the country. It was my understanding that, and I thought that that was brilliant, the right place for it, and to have counsellors available within the school would be the fantastic way forward. And then you have a position where a problem in a child's life doesn't blow up into a crisis because you have direct intervention going on there and then. And it was my understanding that in a number of budgets, we provided the funding for that. There has been pilot schemes, and I know they're rolled out in a number of counties, and in Dublin 7 and in Dublin 11 is my understanding of it. But I suppose the piece I can't understand is we have DESH schools where we provide hot food, because we recognise that those children, more than anybody else, need to be absolutely supported and absolutely ensured that they can focus on their education and their personal development. And yet we have a whole plethora of those schools who don't have any of these well-being and mental health supports. There is NEPs, but NEPs are at a higher level. Not every child needs an educational psychologist. There are children who just need maybe somebody to chat to if they have something going on at home, that they need that additional if they're trying to encounter the stress of, I see my own daughter, if we're running late in traffic, the stress that she encounters is something else. So children perceive stress at very different levels to us as adults. So little things of having someone to talk to would be really important, and yet it's not rolled out. I note that in April of this year, it was put out to tender for there to be a programme developed and provided. But that sounds like an awful long way off. That isn't something that's going to start in September. And while I was out canvassing, I came across a most wonderful woman in Drimnagh who went and trained, is professionally qualified, would be a fantastic play therapist. When she went to the local school in Drimnagh, she was told, there is no funding to engage you. I know what the minister said, but the reality on the ground is that there is no funding to engage you. So I suppose I'm looking for an explanation of that, a timeline on it. When are children going to get these supports? They're living in a world where another one of my campaigns, as you know, is that we enforce the digital age of consent, that children are on smartphones, that there's children are sort of left to their own devices, literally, when we see the Cyber Safe Ireland statistics. So children are in need of what happens if they see something online and they can't say it to their parents. They're in need of having those supports. In the day-to-day robustness of where you have, I'm dealing with a number of cases of racial bullying that is just horrific at the moment, and supporting families in horrific. Where does that child goes to a school where there's no supports? They're relying on teachers who are already quite challenged in their jobs and already trying to be everything to a child as well as giving them a great education. But I feel we need an update, and it may be that then we need a campaign arising on that to hurry this up. So I'm looking forward to what you're going to say, Minister.
Thank you, Senator. Minister, you have 4 minutes.
Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach, and can I thank Senator Mary Siri Carney for raising this important matter. As you said, it's a debate I'm taking on behalf of Minister Norma Foley. This particular area of wellbeing falls under her direct remit. And I suppose it gives me an opportunity to update the House on the mental health supports for primary and post-primary schools provided by the Department of Education. And as always, Senator Siri Carney, you're up to date on where things are at. I certainly can add a few elements. So as you said, this is something that Minister Norma Foley and the government were absolutely committed to doing, and you've acknowledged that. So in June of 2023, when they came into government, the Minister for Education launched a $5 million pilot of counselling and wellbeing supports in primary schools in selected counties. Complements the excellent work the schools already undertake in the area of wellbeing, as well as the other services provided by the state, such as the National Education Psychology Service and the HSE and CAMS, which you've already referenced. The counselling in primary schools has two strands. Strand 1 sees direct counselling supports being provided in primary schools for the first time. Department of Education has set up a county panels to pre-approve private counsel to provide one-to-one counselling in primary schools in the counties of Cavan, Laois, Leitrim, Longford, Mayo, Monaghan and Tipperary, which you've already acknowledged. In total, 778 blocks of counselling have been allocated to schools in the pilot counties, which provide an allocation 778 children. To date, 36 counsellors have been recruited across the 7 pilot counties. Strand 2, which I think is an area you very much have focused in on, which is also up and running, is the introduction of education wellbeing teams in clusters of schools. In Cork, Carlow, it's actually Dublin 7, it's Dublin 16. You made reference to Dublin, it's Dublin 16, to support pupils, support to pupils, parents and schools, to support wellbeing and resilience supports cluster primary schools. In 15 educational practitioners have been recruited to the 4 cluster areas. An extensive training program provided by the National Education Psychological Service. As this is a pilot that's about to include all schools, an external evaluation is being commissioned to review both strands of the pilot. Through the pilot evaluation, the Department is confident will gather valuable learning that will inform future policy and provision in this area. And you made reference to DESH schools. And you made specific reference. So I think that's maybe something, Senator, that maybe you could communicate directly with Minister Norma Foley, that the pilot should have a specific terms, cover certain areas, including terms, we'll say the terms should include maybe a specific focus on areas like deaf schools, but obviously all schools as well. I spoke to the officials in the department on it myself, in advance of our debate, and they're looking to get that pilot underway later in the year. Separately then, to supplement the support for post-primary, and the Minister of Education published a tender. So the tender, that relates to post-primary, not to primary. To procure service to further support wellbeing and mental health in post-primary schools. Tender to provide school providers to work with the department to develop and deliver additional supports to complement existing systems and structures in post-primary for wellbeing and mental health. Its resource and supports development will support students, parents and school staff. It's a bit the tender contract will be awarded soon and will commence by July of 2024. So that's very much progress taking place in the post-primary area. And obviously there's strand 1 and strand 2 are on the way in the primary area. A data wellbeing portal can be accessed via the Wellbeing in Education and gov.ie, bring together extensive wellbeing and mental health support and resources that have been developed by the Department of Education and the Department of Support Services. But I note the point you've raised. So 2 strands 1 and strands 2 are already underway for primary. There's a specific tender going out for post-primary. The review of the pilot will take place this year, but I note the points you've raised and there are matters I will bring back to the Minister of Education, and I look forward to your further comments.
Thank you, Minister. Senator.
Thank you, Ciarán. And thank you, Minister, and thank you for the additional preparation that you always do in any answer to a commencement with me. I suppose I completely appreciate the need for standards, and I see that weaved through the speech in reply. Of course we do. But if we look at it, 100 hours of play therapy could be provided for 8 children for the cost of €6,000. It's small money in a school. Those parents can't afford it themselves. If they could afford it themselves, their child wouldn't be in a school where they need a hot meals programme. So I suppose there needs to be, we're so busy caught up in the formality of a formal programme that is rolled out, and it has to have a pilot and it has to be assessed and it has to be overseen. And I agree with all of that, because there certainly are charlatans operating under the guise of psychologist titles. But we need effective programmes very quickly for wellbeing for children, and while there is a portal, that portal will rely on parents having to pay for it. So we need a mechanism whereby, and that's where I would, and that's what I'd ask you to bring that message back, but that's where I'm going to start campaigning for.
Thank you very much, Senator Siri Kearney. Minister.
Thanks very much, Senator Mary Siri Kearney, for this debate, and I note that you're looking at it in a very structured fashion. You will appreciate, as you've already referenced, that there is a need for an evaluation both on a qualitative basis as well as a quantitative basis as distinct as well as a quantity basis. That will take place. You are raising a very, I suppose, interesting point in terms of about play therapies and hours and that. And I've no doubt it's a matter that you will put serious thought in terms of a particular policy and approach on it, and it's something I've no doubt you will take up with Minister Norma Foley herself, but I will bring back your comments directly to her today on the particular matters you raise. Thank you.